jumped over into Lightroom, and what we're going to do is compare the images from the K-3 Mark III monochrome to the K-3 Mark III colour. And how I did this was I took several images with both cameras, and I used the electronic shutter on both cameras and shot in live view on the same subject, obviously this gin bottle, which is empty, I'll have you know. We managed to get up to ISO 80,000. I was shooting wide open, again with the electronic shutter. There'll be one more image on the colour version of the K-3 Mark III, and that's purely down to the base ISO level of 100 as opposed to the base ISO on the monochrome of 200. So we're going to compare both base ISOs. Obviously I've stated that it's 200 on the monochrome and 100 on the colour version, the K-3 Mark III. Yeah, what we're looking for, two things. Sharpness, there shouldn't be any difference in sharpness to be honest, but more so noise levels. I want to see which file deteriorates faster, because obviously the monochrome sensor doesn't have the extra colour layers in front of it, so it should be better in that respect. As expected, at base ISO on both cameras there's going to be no noise, both nice and sharp images. We'll compare ISO 200 from the colour sensor so that we keeping things right, and I can't see any difference there. We'll zoom into 200. 400 ISO. 400 ISO. Let's see if there's any difference on these. At 100%, it's too difficult to tell. On 200%, I can see a little bit more noise in the colour file. Next up, we have ISO 800, 200% again. Again, the monochrome file is holding up a little bit better. There's not as much noise, basically. There isn't as much noise in the monochrome file as what there is in the colour version. Sharpness, it's going to be the same really, isn't it? In saying that, the monochrome version to me does look slightly sharper there. Well, it does look sharper than the colour version. Next up, we've got ISO 1600. I'm just going to use it's quite nice, the 200% to really dive in and take a look at this. Now, there's not much really changed in terms of noise on the monochrome file from base. You know, we're up at 1600 now, and there's not really any noise there, where it's starting to creep in. As you can see up here on the colour file, there's noticeably more noise than what there is over here on the monochrome file. Now we're up to ISO 3200, and again we'll zoom back in. Now there's a little bit of noise being introduced there on the monochrome file, I can see, but there's quite a bit more noise at 200%, don't forget, on the colour file. You can see here on the side of the bottle that the monochrome file to me looks sharper. And I will also state this, if you can see there that the photo has developed adjustments. All that I did on the colour version, on the K-3 Mark III colour, was put the image in the camera's natural profile. That was the reason for that. Now up to ISO 6400, 6400. Now the colour image is starting to fall apart a little bit, ever so slightly. Obviously if you go to 100%, it's completely fine, usable image. Like, I would have no problem in using that file. But the monochrome, the monochrome file is just resisting noise. It's pretty crazy. So ISO 12800, this next one is. As you can see there, the monochrome is still winning out by a fair margin in terms of noise. We zoom into 200%. My cut-off point, in most cases, when I'm out shooting, I set the camera to a limit of 12,800 ISO. ISO 25,600. Now you can clearly see noise in both of these files. Again, at 200%, we'll go to 100. At 100%, I have no issue in using the monochrome file. None whatsoever. I would be completely fine with that. And obviously this is without any noise removal. But in the colour file, you can see now that it is starting to fall apart ever so slightly. Now we're up to ISO 51200. We'll zoom back in, 100%. There's noise visible on both images. Again, the monochrome is a lot less than the colour version. This is quite a handy area to look at here. There's visibly, it's much smaller grains of noise, the size of the noise is smaller. And here you can see there's some purple colour fringing starting to happen. The colour's starting to change on the colour file. Would I still use the monochrome image at this ISO at 51200? Well, I think you could easily get away with correcting it. I don't think I'd use it straight out of camera like that, but it just depends. If you want the shot, I would use it. Now we're up to ISO 80,000. The monochrome file is just not falling apart. Like, I can't tell that much difference between 51,000. Just look here on the left hand side in the monochrome. Then we'll go to 80,000. There's not that much. There is a little bit of difference, but not like loads. Whereas on the colour file, you can see the noise is quite big now. It's quite large. The image is definitely falling apart. It's deteriorating a bit there. We'll zoom out to 100%. You know, I think this would be the line where I draw it with the monochrome, like 80,000 probably, to use and repair the image. Sadly, I didn't go any higher than that. I might have to do some more. I might max it out. I'll do another test where I max it out to see. But that's quite interesting. The test what we've done there, you can see that the colour file has definitely fallen apart at the higher ISOs compared to the monochrome. And the sharpness, it looks sharper on the monochrome camera because there's less noise.